You already know what we're talking about. Another year's passed and I'll be covering the games I spent my time with. The game doesn't have to be from this year, as long as I played it in 2025, it can get a shout out. Kinda needed that role and play this year especially, you'll see soon enough. And to end it off, I'll be handing out some awards to the best, or the worst, of the bunch. I won't waste any more of your time, let's start. Before we get into the actual games, we'll start with what's basically my honorable mentions, all the demos and network tests that I played throughout the year. I will say, there are some games that I grabbed very late in December, but because I had to make a cutoff at the beginning of December, these games are not going to be featured, and yeah, it kind of stinks, but I'm sure I'll be talking about them very soon. I've never heard of this franchise before, but I caught word of this demo back in August, and I was going through a period where I couldn't buy games in order to save money, so I downloaded it out of pure boredom. I was actually pretty surprised with what I played. The characters were fun, and they have that endearing but goofy taste I tend to like. I heard people didn't like Estelle's voice, but I don't know, it didn't really bug me. The combat's interesting. It takes standard turn-based fighting and combines it with action-based combat, which seems to be the thing JRPGs are turning to nowadays. There's a bit to it, but it seems pretty well thought out. I'd gel with it a bit more if I played more of the demo, but I didn't play it as much as I probably should have. But when you have a demo of a JRPG that's 4 hours long, and you don't normally like the genre, you tend to find reasons to quit. That being said, if the game is ever available for a cheap price, I might look into playing more of it. It's funny I'm saying I'm not much of a JRPG guy as I decide to play another JRPG demo. I didn't get that far into this one either, but it seems kind of interesting. The dungeon crawling wasn't bad, but I can tell it's the sort of thing I would get tired of in no time. Not to say that it's bad, but it feels like Digimon alright. Well, it's really Digimon with some SMT energy mixed in, so I wonder what others would think of the game.
Welcome to Starbound.
I've been meaning to make a better effort of playing more indie games, and just happened to find out about this one a few months before the demo came out. This game takes inspiration from multiple games, but the two biggest ones are Kirby Air Ride and Sonic Adventure. You can raise a Lumi in the garden, and by taking care of your little friend, you can use them to beat your rivals in Comet Clash, which is this game's take on City Trial. The mode takes the basic formula from Air Ride, but the player has more abilities than Kirby could ever do. You can use a shield to block attacks, launch your Lumi towards defenseless players, and you can grind on guardrails. Melee and Tony Hawk made their inspiration known here. Now keep in mind, I never played the original Kirby Air Ride. I just thought the game had a sick sense of style and flair and wanted to support a small indie studio. But I feel like I wasn't getting the hang of things. It was difficult to change directions since the turn radius wasn't as sharp as I expected. I would often lose track of everyone since the map was really big, and since there's only like 3 other people, it would take me a lot of time to maneuver to where they were located. When the 5 minutes of the collecting phase run out, the finale starts. The only one available in the demo is the combat phase, so you have to attack the other players till their health bar fully depletes. I wasn't aware of this, so I was confused of what we were supposed to be doing during the combat phase since it just felt like the last phase and there wasn't really anything extra that happened. Now all of this comes from the fact that I wasn't used to the original formula and the gameplay Star Garden was trying to go for, and I did get used to it and started to like it a bit. But I noticed I wasn't feeling very well after playing one time and I just never returned. I think there's some good things going on here, and this game, as far as I can see it, is nowhere close to coming out, so there's plenty of time to flesh things out and make it a wonderful experience. Despite not really loving my time with it, I think Star Garden has the potential to be something great. I even supported the Kickstarter so they can continue to add stuff to the game. The timing of this demo came at an unforeseen time considering Kirby Air Ride actually got a sequel and it came out the same year, but I think the demo is still worth checking out. I only got to do the Cosmic Clash in the demo, but the full game will have a race mode on top of a story mode, and it's got the Y2K aesthetic all over it, so I can't help but not say it's worth a try.
SpeedRunners 2, the king of speed.
This might be a long one, but this one's important, so stay with me here. I've already shared my love for the original SpeedRunners, and I was quick to do so with the sequel. It became my most anticipated game of 2025. In May, TinyBuild announced there would be an open playtest before the game's release. You can probably imagine how hyped I was. There was a bit of radio silence for a while, but the playtest finally dropped in September. I know this wasn't the actual game, but it felt good to see this title screen with that theme triumphantly playing in the back. Booting the game up showed me how much nicer this game is going to be when it comes out. That being said, I was pretty bummed I had to bump the graphics down since it wasn't running well on my computer. but it's not the biggest deal. I prefer to play this on console anyway, so I'll just deal with it for now. I was hit with another surprise whenever I went to the character select screen.
Good evening, citizens! We interrupt your programming to bring you a live broadcast of the latest speedrunning action that's taking place within the vicinity of our beloved city.
Adding an announcer really puts things in perspective considering how much of a show a super race can be. I primarily played offline to get used to everything, but I dabbled with the new online modes, Tournament and 8-player match. Tournaments fit right into this frantic frenzy. It starts with 64 players, but the top 2 move on to the next bracket until the final match. This will keep me motivated to learn all the maps in the full release since I didn't know what I was doing a lot of the time. But I did get third on one attempt. When they announced 8-player matches, I thought it was a bold decision since I didn't know how it would work. Well, I got my answer. Yeah, I'm not really digging this. There's a chance I can warm up to it, but I think 8 players is too much. I can barely see where I am half the time. Actually, I can say this about the whole playtest. Whether it was on or offline, 4 or 8 players, I struggled to see where my character was, often confusing myself for another player and dying instantly as a result. They nailed the movement in this game. It feels as close as you can get to the original, but since this game is using 3D models and not 2D, and the backgrounds are very vibrant, everything blends together. Ironically, I love how the backgrounds look. I can't get enough of that 60s retrofuturism, but it just makes playing the game difficult at times. Combine that and the fact that the characters are moving at 10 FPS, I really liked what I played, but I didn't think the game was anywhere ready for release. And I think others shared a similar sentiment through a survey the team gave out because weeks later, they announced SpeedRunners 2 was getting pushed back to 2026. It really stinks that my most anticipated game didn't come out this year, but the delay will only make the final game a better product. Plus, I did get to play it this year, if only for a handful of hours. Whatever, when this game drops next year, I will be there. I gotta show everyone how speedrunning's done, of course. This totally caught me off guard, but I guess the last Spongebob game did come out in 2023, so it makes sense. Anyways, I downloaded the Titans of the Tide demo to see what it was looking like. And yeah, it seems like more of the last game. Biggest difference is you get to play as Patrick as well as Spongebob. You can switch on the fly with this ghost mechanic, which admittedly is kind of cool. I won't say much else since my sentiment on every other aspect of this demo can be copied and pasted to its predecessor, which we'll talk about in a minute. Like I mentioned before, I didn't play the original Air Ride, but I've been wanting to play the game for years, so I was actually pretty hyped whenever the sequel got announced.
Kirby Air Ride! Kirby Air Ride! It's Kirby Air Ride! This has to be the game Sakurai is working on!
I was pretty sold after that first direct that revealed what the game was going to be like, but they lost me after the second. It left me wondering if this would be a worthwhile game to get. $70 is a lot of money. Luckily, they dropped a global test ride so I can see if spending $70 would be worth it. I'll keep it straight. Playing the demo made me realize that this game isn't for me. I wasn't big on how the races felt, and the city trial mode carried over all the issues I have with Smash Run from Smash 3DS. Plus, I felt slightly nauseous after my session, but that's on me for not changing the settings to combat that. And before anyone says anything, no, I don't normally get nauseous whenever I play games like this, so it's really weird that both this and Star Garden caused that issue to happen. Speaking of which, after playing both this and Star Garden, I think I'm just not into the city trial formula in general, but I won't give up on Star Garden. This game on the other hand, I'm not sure. This isn't to say I think the game's bad. There were some stupid decisions made, but this game has a lot of good going for it. But it's not for me, especially not for $70. Needless to say, I won't be picking this one up anytime soon. But maybe years later, if I find it used and cheap, I'll be down to try it again. First game I got this year is Need for Speed Underground. After having a blast with the Burnout series in 2024 and seeing this on a shelf one day, I figured it would have been a good time. Unfortunately, this and a few other games I got this year I didn't spend a lot of time with and don't have much to comment on. I'll keep this brief, but I was very busy with work in the first half of the year. It was really difficult to find time to play games for a bit, and when I did find time to play them, I would have to focus on something else. There was also a problem where I would start a game and quickly lose interest after a session, but that stems from another problem that I'll touch on later. So I hear you asking, how much of Need for Speed did you play? A race? Now before you give me that look, I did play a little bit more recently since I had to pull off this together, and yeah, this is definitely a racing game. Man, even with my limited time, I quickly realized this wasn't going to be anything mind-blowing. It's an arcade racing game from the 6th generation, but I don't know what I was expecting. Since this was published by EA Games when they were cool, we got a music player with music of the era. When I started the game and heard Little John screaming out of nowhere, it really caught me off guard. I think if I actually spent time with it and played a campaign, I'd have at least a decent time with it. But this was the first victim of I'm not really feeling it. Before I move on, I'll say this game visually is pretty nostalgic in a way. It reminds me of the game Final Drive Fury, which makes sense considering I think that was a blatant Need for Speed clone. Like I mentioned earlier, I was introduced to the Burnout series last year and it quickly became one of my favorite franchises ever. But by the time the new year rolled around, I didn't get a chance to try out the most recent, and I use that term very loosely, title being Burnout Paradise. I was hesitant to even try it out since I was pretty convinced that nothing could beat Burnout 3 for me, and I didn't think I would like an open world racing game. But of course that was my own assumption, and I wouldn't know for sure unless I tried it out. Well, I realized there was still a holiday sale happening on the PlayStation Store and I could get the game for $3. Can't make any more excuses now, can I? Paradise made the move to open world when other racing franchises were doing the same since it seemed like the latest way to move the genre forward. And from what I've seen, some people like the change while others weren't for it. As for me, I actually love it. I was pretty worried before, but making Burnout open world works so well. It reminds me when I played Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom. Wait, actually there's a better comparison I can make here. This feels like Burnout pulling a Mario Kart World. You know, just in reverse because obviously Mario Kart World came out after, but you know what I mean. There's something to do at every intersection. A race, takedown, burning lap, even some new events like Marked Man and Stunt Run. Despite all taking place in the same location, every route is different and there's a bit of variety depending on where you are on the map, so it doesn't ever feel boring. You don't even have to take the exact route either. Sometimes you can make your own path to get to the finish line. Between the events, you can explore the map and discover breakable fences and billboards, or just straight up drive around, enjoy the scenery, and kick back listening to the music. Speaking of which, I can hear a case for this game having the best soundtrack in the series. The tracks in Burnout 3 are hard to beat, but in Paradise, on top of the licensed tracks EA was able to grab, every single original track from the past games are in the music player. Trust me when I say I had a big smile on my face whenever the music from Burnout 2 started playing out of nowhere. And how can I not mention the crashes? They look so good, almost to the point where I have to recoil sometimes from how brutal they appear. Whenever I play these games enough and start to enjoy them, it doesn't take long for me to pinpoint any issues I have with them. And this game does have a few. Racing in an open world game does work, but when there's a ton of places to turn, the game has to indicate where the best place to turn is. But when you're moving so fast and you're worrying about so many other things, it's a bit difficult to carefully turn in the right spot in the right way and avoid crashing. Like I mentioned before, you can make your own path in a lot of instances, but not every path is the best path. Too many times I found myself in a situation where I wasn't quite sure where I should be turning, and I was stuck going down some road that didn't have a good path to get back in the race. Another issue I have is with the crash mode. There isn't one. At least that's what I thought before I pressed the bumpers on my controller by accident and started rolling down the street and started racking up some money while crashing into the nearby traffic. You can't really call this a crash mode. This feels super stitched on, like an afterthought. This doesn't ruin the game for me, but I find it puzzling how this mode improved in every game until this one. I would have preferred it if they just didn't add it in at all. My last gripe has to do with the events. I like driving around to find new events, but sometimes I wish there was a way to fast travel to ones that you've already been to. It wouldn't be a big deal if they're all close together, but sometimes I'll end up at an event on the west side, nowhere close to where I want to go next. It feels strange something like that isn't here, but whatever, I guess I'll take the singing route. There's more I can talk about, like the extra content that was added on because this is the remastered version after all, but maybe some other time we can check that out. Burnout Paradise is a phenomenal game, and it makes me only more sad that currently the series has been MIA for centuries. There are some signs of life around, but I don't know, you can't beat what came before in my eyes. Get ready because this party will be a long one. I'll be honest, I had no plans to get this game anytime soon. I've already given my 2 cents on this game before, but to reiterate, I was worried this game wouldn't be as good as Mario Party Superstars, which was a return to what made the series great. I saw videos at different outlets covering the game, and it looked to be a decent time, but I wasn't convinced enough to pick it up. But I ended up randomly getting it one day in February whenever I got snowed in and my friends suggested we hop on Discord to play it. And for that reason, this is the only first-party Switch game I own digitally. Thanks to my friends, I've put in about 10 hours into Jamboree, so I understand the game a fair bit. Thankfully, this game wasn't the huge mess I thought it was going to be. For some people, this may be the easiest Switch Mario Party to get into. It's got the great quality of life updates from Superstars and the addition of side modes like in Super Mario Party, and you're not stuck using a single Joy-Con for regular games. Seriously, why do you think that was a smart idea? The boards overall are good. Bringing back 2 boards from the first 2 games seems really random, but I have a feeling they were DLC for Superstars, but they decided to put them in this game due to time or change of plans. I remember thinking one of the new boards was really bad, but I don't remember which. Maybe the Goomba Volcano one? The minigame lineup overall is pretty solid, but some of these minigames go on for way too long. Biggest offenders of this are the showdown minigames, the ones you play whenever you're trying to get a Jamboree buddy. These are some of the cooler minigames, but that doesn't matter whenever they last 3 minutes. I mentioned the other modes earlier, but there's a good number of these. My only issue is I don't feel compelled to return to most of these. Bowser's Kaboom Squad and Koopathlon are more of the headliners of these modes, and I got my fill on Kaboom Squad. It's alright. Koopathlon was pretty fun however, and I can see myself playing this way more in the future, as well as the Rhythm Kitchen if I'm ever in the mood. Huh, I completely forgot about the single player. Probably because I played it for a short bit and got really bored. I gotta touch more on the Jamboree Buddy since they're the big gimmick in this game. The whole mechanic is interesting, but I'm not really into it myself. After someone bumps into a buddy, everyone has to play a showdown minigame in order to snatch one for 3 turns, with only the person who initiated the minigame getting a head start. I feel like that bonus doesn't amount to much sometimes and it can still be anyone's game. And honestly, that's probably a good thing. Makes it more fair that way. But for the person who finds the buddy in the first place to not have anything guaranteed, it feels like a waste of time. Speaking of time, something I've noticed after a session is how long it went. The showdown minigames, along with some of the longer regular minigames, slow down the pace of the game. For the first time ever, I had to pay attention to how long the estimated playtime of a board was because it's pretty dead on now. Whoever has the Jamboree Buddy does 2 of everything, like buying items or stars twice. That also slows down the pace. Actually, let's talk about that a little bit. You get 2 of everything with the buddies. Considering that's kind of insane, you can also lose 2 of everything in an effort to balance things out. But regardless of how equal it is, I find this mechanic annoying. Even with a high risk, high reward, it's so easy to separate yourself from the rest of the group. It wouldn't be as bad if they were a bit out of reach on the map and you could just ignore them, but considering they appear every 3 turns, there's a good chance you'll have to deal with them. Unless you're playing a 10-turn match, I found it hard to get to them in time, which is a problem within itself, but I don't mind. I am nitpicking a mechanic in a party game with luck being a huge factor. I just wish there was an option to turn them off for people like me who want a more standard Mario Party experience. Lastly, I'll quickly touch on the pro rules. I'm very glad they incorporated something like this in Mario Party. The series has existed for 26 years now, and there's people who are very meticulous about how they play. The addition of this rule can allow for some exciting games, but since you have no say on how the pro rules work, they, once again, missed the mark. Locking some of the settings, such as the duration being 12 turns, is a strange decision, and the whole thing feels way too restricted. I get wanting to limit the amount of randomness, but come on, I can't toggle chance time every once in a while? Talking about what you like and dislike about Mario Party feels superfluous since everyone has their own preferences. Just the thought of mentioning my favorite Mario Party will send me straight to trial, but considering how this is one of the earliest Nintendo franchises I got introduced to, I can't help but get passionate about what my thoughts are sometimes. Overall, for me personally, I think Super Mario Jamboree is just fine. It's convenient enough to play with my friends whenever we're in a good mood to start hitting each other. I would easily play Mario Party Superstars over this, and when the next Mario Party comes out, I'll most likely never touch this one again. But I know people don't mind this game, and with so many modes and a strong minigame lineup, they'll be having fun with this one for years to come.
You got a star.
If I had a PS3 when I was younger, Little Big Planet most likely would have been a series I grew up with. Unfortunately, I played PS2 games during that era, so I missed out. I remember seeing commercials and merch featuring Sackboy, but of course I didn't know much other than that. So I decided to change that and picked up the game that started it all. Well, the Game of the Year edition that is. Man, if there was a visual representation of the late 2000s, this would be it. This game just feels like you have no other choice but to be nostalgic for it. With the playful arts and crafts visuals and the music, presentation wise, Little Big Planet stands out. Too bad I didn't get that far in. Time was a factor here, but while my sister and I were liking the charming aspect of the game when we played, we weren't quick to pick it back up. Maybe we weren't too keen on the platforming in the early levels, I honestly don't remember. I know next to nothing about the series, but I was aware of the custom levels people created akin to Super Mario Maker. I think the online servers were shut down at some point, so experiencing this game to its full potential is out of the question. I also think it's easier to get into the series whenever you grow up with it, but I feel like I'm missing out on something here. maybe I'll pick this one back up at some point, or I'll check out another game in the series. I'm not quite sure yet, but at the very least, I got to check out the origins of Sackboy. This has to be one of the most interesting games I've played in a while. I randomly found this one in my local retro place in really good condition at a cheap price, and I've played a number of pull games in the past. It was hard not to get it. From the get-go, you're suddenly on some random beach with no rhyme or reason, starting a match greets you to Master and Crazy Hand on their day off, and starting the main mode introduces you to a loan shark. Like, an actual loan shark. I guess he gives me the ability to go against dudes like Sandy Beach. I got such a good laugh playing this game. I've never played something like a pull game that has this much personality to it. Who even made this mess? Awesome Studios. How have I never heard of them or this game? Anyways, the billiards aspect is pretty good, but to explore more of the game, I have to beat people like Sandy over here to unlock everything. And that'd be fine, except I only played this game a couple of times before dropping it. And when I did play, it was mainly versus matches, which doesn't earn you money to unlock stuff. But regardless of that, this game left a lasting impression on me. If you ever see Pull Paradise anywhere, give it a shot. You won't regret it. I'm gonna get this out of the way. This is another one I didn't play much at all. And considering it's a JRPG and there's too much stuff I haven't experienced to give my full opinion on the game, but I still wanted to bring it up. I'm always on the lookout for GameCube games, and one day I happened to stumble upon Tales of Symphonia at my local place. I don't know anything about this or the other Tales of games other than people really like them, but sometimes you gotta take a chance on a game you're unfamiliar with. Unfortunately, I couldn't get into it. This time it wasn't necessarily because I wasn't feeling it or I didn't have the time. I think I got 3 hours in or something. No, the problem was the whole JRPG thing. I don't really like them, but I'll try one out every once in a while to see if I'll enjoy it. And I can kind of vibe with stuff like Trails of the Sky or Digimon stories, but it takes a lot for the story, characters, and most importantly, combat to pull me in. The characters in this game seem fun and the story seems kind of interesting, but I could not get into the battles. The controls didn't feel intuitive. Doesn't help that you have to do a ton of battles in order to be at the best level, which is one of my least favorite things about role-playing games. This game reminds me of Final Fantasy XIII, a game I quickly fell off of, but I'll always eye it on my shelf thinking when the time will be right to give it another chance. Maybe at some point I'll take the plunge again, but there are other games calling my name.
I was just warming up.
Next up are two games people hold in high regard, Astrobot and Super Mario Odyssey. I've already discussed my opinions on these games in the past, so I'll be focusing on my time with each game in the months after beating them. While I wasn't thrilled it took me 8 months to get to Astrobot, it turns out I played the game at the perfect time since 5 new levels dropped while I was preparing to talk about the game. They were more of the speedrunning type levels that made me really like Astrobot, and they were super hard to do, with a couple of exceptions. Handhold Havoc was an absolute pain to get through. I already hated the gyro-based moves, and making a level that depends on it infuriated me. Mega Mix Mastery was also very difficult, but it was much more enjoyable than that dumb monkey level. By the way, the boss at the end of the last 2 levels put a huge smile on my face. I won't spoil who they are in case you haven't played them yourself, but I'll just say, I was confused why I never saw these 2 in the base game, but I'm glad they're finally here. Other than that, I haven't touched Astrobot in a while, but this doesn't change my opinion on the game. It's one of the better platformers I've played in a long time, but a few key areas hold the game back. Now in regards to the other platformer I was playing around this time. Slight disclaimer here, I played this game after the next one we'll be talking about, but it makes more sense to group this along with Astrobot. In comparison to Astrobot, I played this game quite a bit after I finished it. This does feel strange to say considering I was adamant about not playing more of it due to my issue of the utilization of power moons and the futile task of 100%ing the game, but there's something about it that makes it hard to put down. Plus, I couldn't buy another game for a few months since I was tight on money, and realistically, this was the only new game I could play. At least this game gives you a bang for your buck. Once you unlock the second round of moons in each level, there's so much to do and harder challenges to get introduced. The main game is really easy, so it was a nice change of pace. That being said, I took some time to look at a kingdom you can unlock in post-game, being the Dark Side of the Moon, and once I saw that it was just harder boss fights, I didn't bother. Yes, I know I complained about the bosses being too easy before, but I knew I wasn't going to be playing the game enough to really care about any of that. But of course, knowing me, the announcement of the next 3D Mario will give me enough vigor to take on every post-game boss I see. Despite my hesitations, this game was so fun to come back to, and it reminded me why I enjoyed my initial playthrough. It's a masterclass in platforming and will always leave you wanting more. It feels strange that this game is as old as it is. It feels like it could come out today and I wouldn't notice. It makes it even more ironic that this is the first game I bought after Nintendo's newest console released. On that note, this next game was kind of inevitable. Okay, well, there are so many ways I can take this. Let's just start at the beginning. Nintendo finally decided to move to the next generation and released a new gaming console this year. There's a lot that can be said about that console, and I'll have to put in my own 2 cents at some point, but let's focus on the topic at hand. The very first game that was confirmed for the Switch 2 was a new Mario Kart. A new entry to Mario Kart is already a big deal considering the last true entry was in 2014, but I was quick to get excited since Mario Kart has always been something I can rely on. Some of my first Nintendo experiences came from Mario Kart, and there's a part of me that got excited to play a new Mario Kart like I did back then. Once my sister got a Switch 2 on launch day, we got to experience it ourselves and see how it fared. Playing that first Grand Prix at, I think it was 1 in the morning or something, was a very fun time. It was the perfect way to experience how this differed from Mario Kart 8. We got to see some of the new characters, costumes, and of course, the new courses. Some of these tracks look phenomenal, and the extra detail on everything makes them so captivating to look at. I was really curious how the music would stand up this time around. Mario Kart 8 has one of the best soundtracks you'll ever hear in a racing game, but somehow, someway, this soundtrack rivals the last one. Whether it's better or not, I'm not sure. I can see an argument for both. I'm pretty sure the same music group as the last game recorded the soundtrack, and yeah, that explains a lot. I wish more games featured live bands for the music, but I'm starting to meander here. I don't recall off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure I played at least one Grand Prix and Knockout Tour that night. The Grand Prix in Mario Kart is as classic as you can get. Except in this game, you don't take laps. All the tracks are connected, so you drive from one end of the track to the other through an in-between track, an intermission. You're looking at me as if I had something to complain about. Jokes aside, I'm well aware on how hated these things are, but since I don't play Mario Kart online ever, I don't have much of an opinion on them. It's cool how it creates another way to experience playing Mario Kart, but they're kind of lackluster. I think they work the best in Knockout Tour, which is the primary way I play Mario Kart World. You have to pass each checkpoint and be far enough in your placing so you don't get left out. It's basically an eliminator from Burnout, and that's why I love it. It's a very arcadey mode that's a great addition to this game, and it's much more interesting than the races for me. I just wish getting first in some of these cups wasn't so difficult. Multiple times I feel like I'm still in contention and the CPU is light years ahead of me. Touching on the difficulty of this game for a moment, I'll admit I'm not a super skilled veteran. I've been playing Mario Kart since I was 11 or 12, but I've always approached it like a seasoned casual, or something like that. With all that being said, I feel like this is one of the more difficult Mario Karts out there. My placing always seemed to vary depending on what random event decided my fate, but that's the magic of Mario Kart, right? That randomness is what levels the playing field a bit. Luckily, I don't mind the game being a bit more difficult to compete in. What I do mind is why the game feels more difficult. This game is the first in the series to have 24 racers on one track. And when you have 23 other people throwing out items at the same time, you can expect to go from 3rd to 23rd in an instant. The added difficulty feels like it's coming from the struggle of dealing with so many people around you. They already widened the lanes to accommodate, but that can only do so much. Mario Kart Wii is the other game I'd say is comparable in terms of difficulty, but in that game, it somewhat feels like you can actually control your destiny. Plus, with some of the techniques you have to use and a couple of terrible items, generally you have to be good at the game to constantly be in first. And I like the game for that. And don't worry, this isn't nostalgia leading me astray here. I was 16 when I first played Wii, and I didn't own it until 2023, so these are pretty fresh thoughts. Whenever it was announced that Mario Kart World would let you drive virtually anywhere, I quickly got excited.
Gosh, it actually is! It's open world!
After just recently getting exposed to Burnout Paradise, the first open world Burnout game, the thought of the same formula being used for Mario Kart felt like a no-brainer. Unfortunately, free roam, as they ended up calling it, wasn't much to look at. You can drive to any track since it's a part of a big world, and you can take the time to look at every minute detail scattered throughout, and it's a really cool aspect of it. You can even practice on the tracks without the pressure of 23 other racers on your tailpipe. But there's not much incentive to explore the world outside of those details. Yeah, there's the different collectibles you can find, and I'm the type of person who would go out of their way to find them, but you can only look for so many of them before you're ready to move on to something else. And overall, the map just feels empty. Random racers drive by every so often, but if you're not on the tracks, then you're just alone. It seems like a wasted opportunity to not use the racers as something you can chase in order to unlock them or something. Yes, I am taking that straight from Burnout Paradise, but that game actually did this mechanic well, so can you blame me? I am being pretty critical, but I did like driving around the map a couple times. I just have absolutely zero reasons to do it again. By the way, I don't know where to add this, but battle mode really isn't to my liking. This is something they really haven't nailed since like the GameCube days, so I just wanted to get that out of the way. This may seem surprising considering the amount of time I dedicated to discussing the game, but I didn't put in as much time into World as you'd think. maybe like 4 to 5 hours overall. I wasn't able to play World much after launch due to not having immediate access to a Switch 2. It was summer after all and everyone's traveling. I didn't get to play it again for another 3 weeks, and after reacquainting myself with the game, I felt like I got my fix for a long while. Despite my negative opinions, this isn't because of World exactly. A similar thing happened with Mario Kart 8. I only played the Wii U version a couple of times, and while I bought Deluxe in 2019 and played it a lot at the start, I rarely launched a game in the years after for anything that wasn't a party. I think I've reached a point where Mario Kart isn't a go-to game for me anymore. And that's okay. As I continue to age, my preferences will change. So it's only natural that I'm not quick to choose Mario Kart as my boredom buster. It's just that with Mario Kart World, when I do want to play it, there are so many parts of it that impress me, that remind me why Mario Kart is a reliable way to spend my time. But there are so many confusing parts to this game that I feel like I still don't have answers for. I know they're fixing some of the issues with this game with time, and I'd be shocked if they didn't add on to this game in the future. But I don't know how that's supposed to get me to play more Mario Kart when I'm already starting to move on. Mario Kart World is a really good game, and I'll admit, it has a couple of my favorite tracks in the series, but it is far from my favorite entry, and it feels like wasted potential. Before we go any further, I'd like to take a bit of an aside here. You remember when I said I was going to put in my 2 cents on the Switch too? Well, it's time. I originally planned for this to be its own section, but after talking about Mario Kart World longer than I originally planned, and the fact that all of this was supposed to be way shorter than last time, I need to truncate this a bit. I'll probably dedicate another time to talk about the Switch 2 at length, but after touching on Mario Kart World, it would feel weird to not talk about the brand new console it released on, or some of what I think. This won't be a rant or anything, just some of my honest thoughts. Overall, I'm really conflicted on the Switch 2. It is super cool to have a more powerful Switch on the market. There were many games on the Switch in its following years that struggled to perform well, so it's a much needed upgrade. And to have a new system in general was always an exciting time. But man, the Switch 2 is kind of a boring console. It's super iterative, the color scheme is lame, and the Joy-Con are still in no way ergonomic. But I can ignore that, it's the games I care more about. And there are some games to play on the thing, there are a couple I think I'll have fun with, but I'm not thrilled over this first 7 months of games. Now this is super subjective, but I was struggling to find anything Switch 2 related to get hyped for it until maybe November. I just got Bonanza and started playing it, but man, I really wish this was a 3D Mario. But who knows, maybe it'll be just as good. I already mentioned my experience with Air Riders, so no need to belay that point. The only other notable thing I played on the Switch 2 was Tears of the Kingdom. I didn't play much of it since, of course, I was busy, but it was really cool seeing such an amazing game run in the way it was meant to be. I'm not gonna say it felt like I was playing a new game, but it gave me a reason to pick up the game again. I mean, I would play it again regardless, but whatever. Playing games on this console can be a nice experience. I just wish the games I want to play weren't $70. When I bought Tears of the Kingdom, I wasn't thrilled at the price, but I made that purchase with the expectation the value would equal the experience. And luckily for me, it absolutely did. So I only want to buy games at that price point that I know will be worth the time and the experience will be top notch. That being said, it can be hard to tell sometimes. So if there's a game I want to play, I try to find it used somewhere or something. I cannot bring myself to drop $70 on a game I'm not committed to. There's so much more I can say, but I'll end my thoughts here. Switch 2 is kind of boring. I'm not a fan of the lineups thus far, but it is a new console with some notable experiences on the horizon. I'm lucky because my sister owns one, so I can still experience some games, but even if she didn't, I'm fine with not getting one until probably a mid-gen rendition. Or the next Mario comes out, whichever comes first. I brought this game up when I was discussing Mario Odyssey and Astrobot. I originally wanted to include the game in the conversation since it was something I previously mentioned I wanted to pick up, and I bought it around the same time I bought the other 2 games. But after playing it a bit, I thought it would have been funnier to trash on it instead. I guess there's people that don't have the same sentiment since I was quickly told afterwards that the game is worth the time. Even a close friend of mine played the game to completion and liked what he played. Well, after that, who am I to go against the people? I gave the game another chance, and now I've reached a verdict. I feel the exact same way. It's probably just me, but most aspects of this game just feel jank.
Spongebob! I'm ready, I'm ready! I forgot something!
I can tell the people who made this are fans of the show and understand the goofy humor it's known for, but visually I'm not liking it, the attacks don't feel satisfying enough, and overall it feels like a game that just seems okay. To be fair, I'm not the target audience, and it's not like Battle for Bikini Bottom was the perfect game, so I shouldn't be so quick to dismiss it. But after I got stuck by some rock with no way to get out, I was ready to move on. There was about a 2-month gap from when I finished Odyssey and started this next game. I was very tight on money, and at that point, I was convinced 2025 wouldn't have any games I was immediately interested in other than SpeedRunners 2. And of course, that was before it got delayed. But then one day I found a video discussing this upcoming indie game. I was sort of aware of the previous game in the series but wasn't really interested, but this one caught my eye. A 3D platformer inspired by Sonic Adventure with all the feel of a Dreamcast game? Sure, I haven't played a 3D Sonic game yet, but that was no reason to avoid it. Plus, it was crazy cheap. A huge breath of fresh air. Tori Saturn. Fun fact, for the longest time I thought it was Torchic Saturn, but I'm pretty sure I was thinking of Torchic, the Pokemon. Anyways, when I said this had the feel of a Dreamcast game, I wasn't kidding. This game wears its Y2K inspiration on its chest and I love it. The movement is sick, the levels are bright and beautiful, the characters are charming. This was a nice way to spend $5. That being said, you get what you pay for, time-wise at least. The game is really short. I think I cleared everything in an hour. You can go for S rank in every stage and collect popsicles scattered throughout the levels to unlock everything, but I wasn't really interested. As much as I like the game, there is one aspect that I have a gripe with. I played through most of the levels in one sitting, but had to leave the level I was on for a minute. When I came back, I went to the level select, selected the level, and after I finished the level, I was back on the main menu screen. I guess to get to the final stage and to see the cutscenes, you have to play the thing from start to finish? I must be messing something up because that makes no sense, regardless of game length. Considering I've been struggling to find the interest to finish games this year, I nearly dropped this one as a result. But I played it the next day and I got through it. And I'm really glad I did because the final level was fantastic. I won't spoil what it was, but if you're a fan of games from the late 90s, chances are you'll enjoy what the level does. Slashro needs to keep doing what they're doing because this is a super charming game, and other people need to check this thing out. With more eyes on Torhi and a bigger budget, there's a huge potential for the series. During the infomercial that was the 2024 Game Awards, there was a trailer that revealed the newest racing game featuring the Blue Blur. I remember seeing it and specifically saying that I wasn't interested. I never saw the Sonic racing games as anything worthwhile. I've dabbled with them here and there, but nothing impressed me, so I had no reason to care when this game came out in 2025. Later in the year, Sega announced how people can experience the game before release, an open network test. I figured, why not? I have no new games to play and it would keep me from getting bored. Let's try it out. Somehow, this was the best decision I made all year. After hours of racing on the network test and later on the single player demo, I bought Sonic Racing Crossworlds at launch. May I introduce to you the only game I bought in 2025 on release day. If you played Mario Kart, then you'll have a good idea of what to expect. Tons of characters, tracks from the franchise, compete for first place, laugh at your friend for getting last, the usual. It's what this game does with each aspect of a karting game that really caught my attention. There is a solid lineup of characters from Sonic's past. I tend to stick with Silver, he was my go-to in Mario and Sonic back in the day. Previous Sonic racing games featured guest characters from other franchises, so it would make sense for it to happen here. That would explain this cursed image. If you told me Miku, Ichiban, and Spongebob would end up in the same game this year, I would think you were a developer for Pull Paradise. I'd be lying if I didn't say I found some of the choices for DLC characters confusing. Mainly talking about Steve over here, who let you win. Granted, this is Sonic Racing Cross Worlds, so it makes sense characters from different gaming worlds would, you know, cross over here. I just wish it didn't drop the ball and not give them voices. The other way the game uses the cross-world motif is with the tracks. The first and third laps on every track are as expected, but the second lap transports you to somewhere completely different. Every single race is a different experience. Any race that takes me back to cyberspace is a good race anytime. I'll say some of the crossworlds feel kind of generic, but I'll just chalk that up to my lacking Sonic knowledge. The one mechanic that really sets this game apart is the plate system. Essentially, you get a suite of abilities to use during a race. Between upgraded drifting, improved handling, and spawning a monster truck at the start of the race, you got some options. Let me circle back to the hailing for a minute. When I played the open network test, I hated how the cars felt to control. I was constantly hitting the walls and there wasn't much I could do about it. When the full game released, I noticed the controls were a bit tighter, which was great, but it wasn't tight enough. This is probably a preference thing, but it's a factor that will turn me away from other racers. Luckily, this game has stuff that improves handling and it's like my issue was never there. Also, the feel of the game highlights how it's more of an arcade racer than a kart racer, if that makes sense. And that's probably why it's so addicting to me at times. My first few hours were spent completing the Grand Prix and beating all the rivals. And I gotta give huge props to the development team. On the higher difficulties, those rifles were doing stuff I expect from human players. I was so surprised to see a spike ball in front of a boost the first time. There's also red coins to collect in every track. It looks like you don't get anything for collecting them all unless you finish all the other achievements, so for some reason I have to just sit on this. But I can't get too comfortable because there's still a number of things to do in this game, like the race park, where you can compete in themed races against the AI fighters. Don't really understand the naming convention, but whatever. What, was the Fighting Polygon team not good enough? There's also time trials, and I haven't even mentioned online yet. And how can I even utter another word without mentioning the festivals? They've been prevalent for the first few months of the game's release, and have been a fun way to keep players invested as well as spread awareness of the DLC characters. The only thing this game is missing is a story mode. With all the work the developers put into the presentation in this game, it's weird that it's the only thing omitted. Especially considering I want to know the origins of Don Patch over here. My guy's just here making sounds, he's gotta have more of a purpose.
I expect great things from you.
Yeah. As you can probably tell from the lengthy explanation, I adore this game. It really caught me off guard and quickly took over my sparse free time this fall. Considering how much of my time Burnout took last year, I wouldn't be surprised if I play Sonic Racing Crossworlds a lot more in the future, especially if they keep bringing in characters that I like. Pac-Man's on his way, baby. This was such a random grab, but I've heard about it before and wanted to try it out. I played NCAA Football 2003 last year and I liked it, but I'll fully admit I barely touched it after a few sessions. I think if a sports game is arcade styled, I'll gravitate towards it more. And that must have been the winning formula because this purchase was so worth it. This is basically football if it were played with wrestling moves. You have to go a whole 30 yards to even get a first down, but before you get there, some linebacker comes up and suplexes you. Everything's over the top, super aggressive, in your face, and it's so great. Plus, you really don't have to understand football to play the game. Yeah, it shoves a playbook in your face expecting you to make a decision on the fly, but I feel like your choice doesn't matter too much. Or maybe my football knowledge is minuscule and running the ball every single play is the workings of a chump.
What a truly pathetic display.
You get to choose between the 31 teams in the league. Wait, the Texans? Who? Last I checked, the Cowboys are the only team in Texas. Next you're going to tell me the Rams aren't based in St. Louis anymore. Like, come on now. But for real, it's really funny seeing the logos and the stats of the NFL in the 90s. It's like a screenshot of what it was like to be into the sport back then. Speaking of the 90s, this music definitely plays the part. We need to bring the series back for this song alone. I haven't messed with season play yet, but I'm not sweating it. This is a game I can easily come back to in my free time. I wonder if the other NFL Blitz games are worth checking out.
The Rams win the game!
Before I take off, I want to hand out those awards I mentioned before. I played more indies this year, so I actually had a choice to make. The cop-out answer would be SpeedRunners 2, but I want to stick with full releases, and Torii Saturn was the best out of the bunch. I didn't play as much retro games this year as I was expecting, and there wasn't a lot I stuck with, but NFL Blitz was the perfect combination of goofy and entertaining. I'll be back on this game next fall for sure. Putting Cosmic Shake here would be too easy, but there were a few games I didn't play enough of to really say if I was disappointed or not. So I'll go with the game that I thought was pretty good but didn't lamp my world. Congrats Mario Kart World, you're a winner! This one's pretty obvious. I think the runner-up would be Astrobot considering I wasn't for it at first. This was a difficult one to choose. The music from most games I played this year were really good, but if I had to give you an answer without thinking about it, I would have to go with Odyssey. Here's a new one. This award goes to the game that gave me a ton of replayability despite the price tag. I spent $15 on NFL Blitz and it gave me so much more than I was expecting. This award's pretty obvious. Which box did I like the best? I'm honestly not sure which to pick. I'll give it to Tales of Symphonia. The art's pretty good on that one. This award can be interpreted in different ways. Maybe I played a game I never thought would come out, or the difficulty of the game made it where finishing it made it special. In this case, it's because I'm not into the genre, and I truly don't know why I bought it in the first place. Once again, it's Tales of Symphonia. Hey, at least I got 2 awards. Here we go, my game of the year. Let's get that drum roll going. My game of the year for 2025 is Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome to... No, it's Super Mario Odyssey. And here's my top 5 if anyone's curious. I waited to give my definitive answer on Astro vs Mario for this moment, even though I feel like you can tell which way I was leaning. While I enjoyed coming back to Astrobot in some cases and seeing all 30 years worth of PlayStation was sick, Odyssey is the stronger game, and it's just a game that makes you happy. Despite my issues with the moons, I still played the post-game, and I wouldn't be surprised if I play more in the future if I get bored. So that's why Astrobot only got as high as 3rd. I'll be straight with you. For me personally, this year stunk gaming wise. I didn't have as much time to play games, my most anticipated game got delayed, I only bought a single new game, and Nintendo didn't release much I was excited for, along with making a ton of stupid decisions. 2 out of the 3 games I got for the Switch were older games, if that tells you anything. Astrobot, Mario Odyssey, and Crossworlds were fantastic experiences that really kept this year from being a complete wash. Luckily, my year in general was pretty good, it was just gaming wise where it stunk. But there are some games coming out in 2026 that I'm really looking forward to. So hopefully we'll get the ball rolling again. And maybe there'll be another game that'll get me to touch my Switch again. But only time will tell. See you on the other side. Later.
I expect great things from you.